Welcome to Therapist Desk Today, the podcast where we explore the world of mental health. I'm your host, Winnie Pere, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you. This week, we kick off our podcast with an engaging discussion on mental health basics tailored for everyone. Today's conversation is on facts and fiction surrounding mental health. This one you will love. So, what are some of the myths that you've had recently or you've grown up knowing surrounding mental wellness? Do you still believe in them, or have you realized that most of them were stories you've had surrounding this landscape of mental health and they aren't true? Recently, I watched a TED talk about a man from Nigeria who was talking about destigmatizing mental disorders from the notion of madness and as a result of witchcraft to a disease with a cure, just like cancer and headaches. As I watched this video, I remembered a certain childhood memory back in preschool. We used to avoid passing through a certain path because a madman was sitting there by the roadside. Most of us have this situation is similar to most of us, you are not supposed to pass there because this madman sits there. It has made us to behave in a very disinclusive and fearful manner. Today's topic is going to be an interesting one as well as very educative. So join me today as we tangle through the web of truth and imagination that shape our perception. The definition of mental health is the first that majority of people are not familiar with. We've had a lot of people using the term mental to associate it with madness. I told you this conversation will be a good one. You've probably heard of this lingo, especially used by the West Africa. Are you mental? Or in the East Africa, where it is usually said as, are you mad? We've heard it before, or it has been said to us by someone. It is very offensive and hurtful when these words are said to us because we associate it with that, with a dirty homeless person who talks to themselves. It's always hallucination and most of the time violent and shunned by the society. But according to APA, which is the American Psychological Association, mental health is a state of the mind characterized by emotional well-being, good behavioral adjustment, relative freedom from anxiety and disabling symptoms, and a capacity to establish constructive relationships and cope with ordinary demands and stress of life. Is this your first time knowing the term, like the definition of the term mental health? I'm sure you're having a moment to reflect on how wrong you've been using that word, Mental health is a spectrum with diverse disorders like anxiety, which many people are battling, depression, personality disorders, OCD, eating disorders that are being battled by so many people and those we think we know and maybe ourselves. So are you battling or you know someone going through these disorders? It is advised or just try to get them some psychological assistance or to talk to loved ones about your struggles, keeping in mind that you're not mad or mental, just going through a rather tough moment. So today I am going to debunk some myths that have, unfortunately, they're very common, but they're the myths that are surrounding the whole landscape of mental health. The first example is mental health is a sign of weakness. My goodness. Mental health, they are medical conditions, and it's not a character flaw. This has especially affected our men who are taught by society to be strong and stigmatized against a lot of things like crying to release emotions or talk about their struggles openly, making them repress their emotions, making them susceptible to stress, anxiety, depression more than women. Did you know that more men are suffering from high blood pressure than women? Yes, now you know. So mental health is not a weakness. And it is also not a character flaw. That's one. Another myth that I would like us to debunk is only certain types of people get mentally ill. Oh my goodness. Mental illness can affect anyone, regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. You've probably heard of a statement like that household is cursed. Only the poor people have mental health challenges. But is that really true? Do mental disorders choose a particular group? If you look around and ask people, you'll get to know that it doesn't affect like a particular, the rich, the poor, male or female, black, brown, or white. Mental illness does not pick. It affects anybody. Now you know. Another myth that I would like us to debunk is you can just snap out of it. I've had people being told, snap out of your madness. You can't snap out of mental illness. Mental illness is not something you can just snap off or shake off. Mentally ill people require treatment and support, Just get over it already. That statement sounds very familiar. But the ones who've gone through mental challenges and are battling these problems, they don't just heal like how a headache, you can take a nap and the headache ends. Just snap some painkillers and, healing from mental illness is a gradual process with some days being good and some days better than others and some days you're in the ditches. Another myth is you can't snap out of mental illness. Now you know. Another one is therapy is just for crazy people. As a therapist, the number of times I've had this is a lot. Therapy is not for anyone who needs therapy. Therapy is for anyone who needs support or guidance in managing their mental health. We can't talk about mental health without talking about the treatment of it. Therapy is very stigmatized in today's community and even in the psychiatric services. Did you know that you don't have to be sad, depressed, or anxious for you to go to therapy? You can even go to therapy to just share some good news with the therapist, A therapist is more of a professional friend that anyone can go to, not only the crazy people. But I also want to say I love where the therapy notion is going. Because right now I have people who come to share progress and good news with their therapist. Not only, therapy is not for crazy people. Now you know. Another myth is that medication is the only treatment. While medication can be helpful for some, there are a more effective treatment for mental illness. This is number one, therapy. Number two, lifestyle changes. Number three, support groups. Actually, in most cases, medication will be prescribed to you, not at first, but as almost the last possible solution. Talk therapy and cognitive reconstruction will be done first, and these are usually more effective than medication. Only in severe cases are medicines prescribed. In fact, can you try getting your sleep routine in check? Then come and let's see if you'll require the medication. Another myth is that children don't experience mental health problems. Yes, this is something that people believe. Children can and do experience mental health issues. And early intervention of this is important. It only affects adults. This is a very common notion. Most mental health problems, including anxiety, ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, eating disorders, attachment issues, they usually start in the school-going age. This is 5 to 19 years. Noting this early signs will be a great intervention, before it gets worse, and it's worse when an adult is passing through this. So yes, now you know, children also experience mental health problems. Another myth is that mental illness is rare. You'll be surprised how common mental illness is. Within 1 in every 5 adults in the US experiencing mental illness is a given disorder like depression, anxiety, and it is very common nowadays. So now you know, mental health is common. It is not rare. Another myth is that people with mental illness are violent. Wow. Most people with mental illness are not violent. and they are likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Some of you have witnessed victims of mental health being beaten up by mobs or cast away by loved ones. Yes, they're tying them down, locking them in rooms that are dark and they're alone. Mentally ill people, they have rights. So it is just a notion and a perception that you need to change, that every mentally ill person is violent. It is human to fall prey to such ideologies, especially if you've grown up in a society that has molded your perception to such fiction. But it is time to change these thoughts, Now you know. Get educated on mental health to not only help ourselves, but to help others, as well as helping our community. Destigmatizing ourselves is the first step to changing a community and living a joyful society. So be the change you want, and let's debunk the stigmatization around mental illness. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it and learned something new. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing to our podcast and leaving us with a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach many listeners. You can also follow us on our social media at Nasieko Therapy to stay up to date with our latest episode. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more content with you soon. Bye!